What is up, everybody? This is the Level Up Podcast. It's the latest edition. We are live here on Facebook. Just want to thank all of you for watching and everybody here in the future listening to us after the fact on iTunes and Stitcher. We really appreciate it. We've got an awesome guest with us today talking about making the jump from buyer agent to listing agent. So this is going to be a super interesting conversation because not only has he done it and done it successfully, he's done it actually at a very high level and transitioned over to a listing agent that's on track to close 10 deals every single month this year. So we're going to get into how he made that transition, what his structure of his team looks like right now that makes him more productive. We're going to talk about the keys to client service, where he's getting his leads from in terms of listings and all kinds of good stuff to get into. So first of all, Greg Harrelson. Greg, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. Excited to be here as always. Excited to have Jeff. He's, over the years, Jeff has become a friend of mine, not too far away from Myrtle Beach up in North Carolina. So I'm ready to wrap with him and see what kind of nuggets we can share here.
That's right. Jeff Lesley from Century 21. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. I'm with Century 21 Sawyer in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Awesome, man. So give us let's just talk about the what you've got coming up. So we were talking about this before we started recording, which is that you've got this kind of big weekend coming up. You've been doing price reduction calls and stuff like that. So what does your morning look like right now heading into this weekend as a listing agent?
So as I spent actually 4 hours this morning in what I call inventory reduction mode, basically. So getting all the listings ready to go. We've got a large crowd that come into town being here at the beach for the July 4th weekend. So the primary goal was to get a lot of the properties priced right. Basically today, tomorrow, we'll get them all syndicated out to all those ancillary sites so that by the time we hit Saturday, Sunday, as people are rolling into town, properties will have the price reductions, be priced ready to roll so that people are ready to view them.
Cool. Now, these are all people that in the past you wouldn't be in listing reduction mode. You'd be gearing up for showing people 10, 15 houses on a weekend instead of. So what are you going to do, Jeff, instead this weekend as a listing agent?
Instead, fortunately, a buddy of mine, he ended up buying a brand new boat back on Memorial Day weekend. So utilized it a few times. It'll be utilized this weekend as well.
That's awesome.
That's
the
life of a listing
Makes it a
agent.
little bit easier.
So that is the dream. Jeff is living the dream right now of the reason why you'd make a jump from buyer agent to listing agent. So let's take us back, Jeff. So what did your business look like, a couple of years ago when you were kind of a primarily a buyer's agent?
Sure. So I got licensed 2011. And so I've been in the business now a total of about 6 years. First full year in, did 37 deals. That was running about 60-40 buyers. And so I was able to do some of the expires, things like that. I was kind of learning some of the initial scripts, get on the phones to be able to generate those. But as everybody knows, when you're starting out, buyers are easier. They contact and you're able to convert them quicker. And it seems like that instant paycheck's a great thing. I then at that point, next year did 60, and when I got licensed May of 11 and then May of 12, hired my first assistant at that time and she had a photography degree, graphic design minor. And so it was really kind of a perfect thing to kind of get me into that situation and somebody I knew previously. And then next year continued around 60 again. And then I was starting to figure out, why am I hitting that glass ceiling? Yeah. And so actually, Greg and I connected previously at a couple conferences, went down to their place and he and I were talking and he said, you got to transition out of those buyers. And so really this would have been the end of 13 is when I was really trying to figure out what's that next step. I ended up got very fortunate actually. Zillow pulled all my listings off and then they all popped back on one day as brand new listings. So my phone rang off the hook. And I had another assistant that I had been queuing up for at that time to try to gear up to the next level because I'd seen a few other agents that had that other person in the mix, where if somebody didn't have to drop everything to go do the next thing. And so I kept seeing myself having to do that. And so brought her in initially, and then Gabby's turned into basically the right-hand COO at this point after going on 3 years now. And that transition worked out really well, but I brought her on to kind of help some of those buy leads that were coming in off Zillow. And then I would say probably about January, February might have been, Greg, when I came your way. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, I transitioned her over to help me on the listing side as more of a listing coordinator. By far the best decision I made, because at that point, instead of generating all the buy leads and pulling me further and further out of the listing world, it really helped me kind of leverage myself so that all I had to do was those license activities. And as you guys know, on the buy side versus a list side, you've only got really about 6 or 8 license activities you have to do as a listing agent. And you can really leverage the rest of those. Whereas a buyer's agent, between showings and everything else, you're taking up 80% of the time is license activities that you have to do. And so
Mm-hmm.
all my staff are unlicensed. So it's much easier to really kind of leverage them into those positions so that I can essentially step in and do what I do when I need to do it. And so last year I ended up closing 101. This year I've closed, tomorrow will be number 70 for the end of Q2. And so goal is 150. So coming up a little bit short of that, but should be able to get fairly close to it. If not, now that I've fully staffed again, be able to run with it.
So let me chime in here. So the year that before you made the transition to do listings, and I'm sure from you or your team, you probably still do a few buyers here and there. But before you really made that decision that I'm going to go to that side and build, in other words, specialize in that size, what was the number of transactions that you were doing?
60
Four?
and then 63. Yeah, it was right around that 60 marker. Yep.
And then 63 to what? Like, what was your jump, or did you actually fall back when you made the transition?
No, so 14 to 15, I stayed right at 60 again, but I'd also brought on additional staff. So I kind of was leveraging a little more, but I wasn't any more profitable. So I would say definitely it was a pullback from that direction, even though the numbers kind of reflected the same thing. But I think
quick
might have
question on the
63
commissions.
to 67. Sure.
So in the commissions in your area, Jeff, does the listing agent take a little bit higher split than the buyer agent?
No, typically they're right about 50-50. Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you may have his profitability may have been decreased just a little bit because he added expenses as he's building the foundation and building the infrastructure in order to go. And I think that's very important for our audience to understand, because this is one of the fears of making a transition, whether you're going from listing sides to buyer sides, or like Jeff did, going from buyer sides to listing sides. The fear is letting go and having nothing and everything come crumbling down. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have Jeff on here, because he took the risk, right? And it paid off, obviously, but he did have a year where he did X, and then he had a year where he plateaued and did the same amount and maybe profited slightly less, only because he was investing into the systems, which then set the foundation for him to go ahead and have the quantum growth that he's doing, which is now 120 plus transactions. So it's very important to understand that whenever you're making a transition, if you plateau, be comfortable with that. That's the investment you have to make in order to start generating momentum and growing. It does take a year or so to pull this off. So what was in your mind though, Jeff? I remember talking with you when you came down, and I remember seeing you at Mike Ferry Retreats, Century 21 events. Why were you thinking of making the transition? What was going on in your mind that says, hey, this is what I want to do?
A lot of it came down to I don't slow down on the growth side at all. And so seeing 2 years in a row kind of running right at those numbers and just seeing where it was kind of plateaued. At that point, I think there were a few artificial ceilings I was seeing in our market as well. I'm seeing agents that are only running a certain level after doing it 20 years, things like that. And for me, I was looking at that, and I had basically broken apart everybody's business. And so I was trying to figure out how to get to that next level. And really, I noticed that there were hardly any people that had kind of that listing coordinator model in place, like a lot of the ones in Mike Ferry do, of where you really kind of leverage the listing side heavier. And so when I saw that opportunity, I went from, I think it was 63 to 67, and then last year jumped to 101. And so to be able to transition that far, it was just a matter of, to be able to jump, I had to make that transition. And like I said, I'm just not a fan of pulling back and slowing down by any means. And so then this year going 101 to 150, it's just a matter of leveraging that next level. And right now you guys probably know Josh Barker out in Reading. He's kind of the one that I'm looking at his business model now to kind of put a lot of that infrastructure in place to take it to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
But this year will be,
awesome.
right now I'm on pace for 185 listings for the year. And so it's just a matter of being able to churn that volume in. And so as the listings come in, I tell everybody my primary focus is two things. It's primarily to get on the phones, because when I get on the phones, I know that I can convert. And so I've got to get the listings, and then I've got to get the price reductions, and everything else comes with it. Buyers will ring the phone, so they'll magically appear. The contracts will magically appear. The closings appear. But if you're not getting those initial listings and the price reductions up front when the inventory doesn't sell, then you're just going to be sitting dead in the water.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So, Greg, I'm curious, just from your perspective, I mean, you've seen a lot of people make this jump. What's the hardest part of making that jump from the buyer to the listing agent in terms of your daily activities? How does that affect your daily life?
I would say that it's the discipline of a generation routine. So it's the discipline or creating the habits to get in here and actually generate on a daily basis. Like Jeff says, 2 to 3 hours a day, he's prospecting, right, for listings. Well, that's a little bit different because with buyers, typically you're not making outbound calls to create to find and identify new buyers. It's more reactive. The calls are coming in, emails are coming in of some sort, and there's a lot of wait and then react. In the listing side, it's no wait. If you're waiting, nothing's gonna ever happen. So you've got to be a lot more proactive. And then there lies if you don't have that habit, then you're going to be inconsistent. And so if you're going to make this transition, you've got to be consistent and have a ritual, a routine to be able to prospect on a daily basis, or else you're not going to find anybody to hire you. And I don't know who told me this, whether it was Mike Ferry or some other person, reminded me one day that, every day you start off at zero. And you've got to go out and find somebody to hire you. And if you don't go out and generate, then you could end up going to sleep being unemployed. And how many days can you go to sleep unemployed in a row before you go broke? That's what happens on the listing side. So the discipline of daily generation is the key. And you will develop the skills over time. If you practice, you'll develop them faster. But if you just develop the habit of making calls and going out and prospecting or whatever, door knocking, however you want to do it, you'll eventually gain the skills necessary to do very well. If the challenge is the inconsistency in the actual generation itself. That's what I see.
Yeah, we've got a really good question to follow up on that. Rebecca Hamilton's watching live. She says, when he makes calls, is it just COI or cold calling too? Which is a great transition because I was going to ask you, Jeff, the same thing. So what is your daily discipline and what goes inside the lead gen time for you, especially when you're making?
When I first started back in the day, 2011, you guys probably remember the world's coming to an end. Everything's going downhill, and so there are a million expireds every day. So that's kind of what I started on. And then as Greg was talking about, and that's one thing that I guess, didn't think of until he was making that comment earlier, I got a little more comfortable in the business, as we all do. So started running 60 deals, and you're kind of thinking you're a rock star, you're doing well. And the phone kept ringing in, but I wasn't actually making the time and effort to ring it out. And that's when I said, you know what, I can't control this. I might be getting 3, 4, 5 people to call per month, but when you can't control it, if the market did tank, what's going to happen then? You've got really no disciplines in place. You've got no set routines to do that. So at that point, transitioned over into calling for sale by owners probably about 2 or 3 years ago as the expireds dried up. And so that's probably my biggest bread and butter right now is the for sale by owners. I'm getting a lot of still incoming leads from past clients. And even I'd say the past probably 9 months, a few of the people that I'm in Mike Ferry mastermind group with, one had really leveraged me into getting back into calling my COI and calling my past clients, because I believe, and the reason I'm kind of staffed the way I am is I think your biggest lead gen source is your customer service. And that's what I pound into my staff every day is however they treat our clients, whether it's the follow up every other day to make sure they know exactly what we've got, that makes them want to tell everybody about us. That makes the inbound calls ring, but we can't control it. We can only control the experience, not the incoming calls. And so then it's my job then to make sure I'm on the phones with the for sale by owners, just listed, just solds. And so during that 2-hour window, based on what the day is, at 8 o'clock, I'll start on expireds. If I've got 3 expireds one day, obviously that doesn't last very long. If I've got 20, and obviously you guys know a couple of days from now, there'll be a lot more than that hitting the mix. Mm-hmm. And so as you kind of see what those days are, I go heavier expireds. I'll hit the FSBOs. At that point, I'll transition over to just listed, just solds, and then lead follow-up. And so I'm pretty heavy on lead follow-up just from the amount of business I've generated in the past alone.
Cool. That's solid.
But I did transition a lead follow-up thing too, because I'm Mike Ferry. I go to a lot of his conferences, and he says, just keep it simple. Do the 4x6 index cards. And I finally started doing that maybe a year and a half ago. And by far the best investment I ever made was a $3 pack of index cards. Because then you can really track with for sale by owners. It's all about the lead follow-up. And so you've got to make sure that you're keeping track of that every week, just kind of touching them and then making sure you're the one they think of when they are ready.
Yeah. Matt, you know what I want the audience to hear right now is see how simple Jeff's making it. He's spent $3 and got some index cards. He manually dials.
Wait, you didn't spend 6 months agonizing over which CRM you should buy, Jeff?
Yeah. He manually dials, doesn't use the Mojos and the other dialers that are out there.
Right.
You can just tell, like, he's not like, I call FISBOs and I called expireds. I mean, this is stuff that people need to understand, that top producers around the country that are sustaining top production for multiple years in a row, not just having 2 years of great spiked, sexy type of production and then they fall down. This is the type of activities that top producers that have been producing top levels for 10 plus years are still doing today. He's just keeping it so simple. Now I'm pro technology. There's no question about it. But what I've seen consistent is people like the Josh Barkers that he mentioned, good friend of mine. Those guys like that, they're all doing taking the same simple approach. So for those that are listening, you want to grow your business, just get some index cards and just use your hand to actually hit the numbers on the phone. Call some for sale by owners. One thing that I can tell that comes across with Jeff right now, that I know that he has to be great at for sale by owners, because his personality type, you can see he's kind of like, he's trustworthy. He's not a fast talker. So for sale by owners always have their guard up. So somebody like Jeff can talk to for sale owners and he probably establishes rapport instantly. So then as long as he follows up, he's probably going to land the deal a high percentage of the time. And a lot of it has to do with his tonality and his inflection. So I just noticed that about you, Jeff. I bet you do very well with those for sale owners.
It works out well. I can't complain.
Humble. Okay, so let's talk about a little on the staffing side, and we can get back to some other things in a second, Greg, if there's more you wanted to dive into on the lead gen side, because I know there's a lot to potentially dig into. But I was curious on the staffing side, Jeff, your main focus is really on putting people in place around you to make you super productive and allow you to limit yourself to those few activities that really generate the income and they're the highest value. So what does the staff structure look like around you, especially now that you've got that third key, that person kind of back in place? What are everyone's duties, and what's their role in helping you focus on the things that you do best?
Sure. So everything I'm going to refer to is business driven. I mean, my undergrad's finance and management, and I've got my MBA, and so I always think kind of at that business level. Mm-hmm. And so basically where I've got Gabby, who was the one I referred to earlier that I hired about 3 years ago, I basically look at me as the CEO, the rainmaker, whatever you want to call it. I've referred to her at conferences as my pimp. She's the one that makes sure that I'm actually on the phones doing the work. And so she's really the COO, kind of running the office on a regular basis. And so that's the way that I structure everything, is that I don't need to be in the day-to-day. Like the new closing coordinator that's come on, she spent the last 4 days with her now, getting her up to speed. I'll pull in, kind of lay out expectations, certain angles there, but she knows exactly what I'm expecting, what experience I expect our clients to have. And so she's able to take lead on that full piece. So staffing wise, I've got her running at that level, and she's the listing coordinator. She's the one that is the primary contact with the sellers on the front end. So when I sit down with a meeting with my clients, I sit down and say, now she'll be contacting you. She'll be the one that will reach out to you to coordinate the measuring, coordinate the photos. Any questions that you ask her relative to pricing, anything like that, or license activities, those cannot be answered by her. She'll defer them back to me. Any other questions she'll take care of for you. And if you set that expectation at the very beginning based on how your staffing is structured, you get zero kickback on it. And so they know that if they need an immediate answer, which, I mean, we're such an impatient society, I guess I would call it, that when you have that question, you want it answered within the first 10 minutes. And I bet 100 of the questions that are asked by my clients, 95 of them, they can answer all day long. And they can get that immediate response back to them. The other 5 or 6 that can't be, they defer it my way. When I'm through prospecting, I'm calling them back and making sure we're getting that same day return. And they know without a doubt that their job is to harass me to make sure I'm making that call back, because I've got a million different distractions that can come into play. And they are, I don't want to call it they are in charge based on whatever they need. All I want is the facts. So they'll come to me and say, I reached out to this person here. I emailed them here. I've been working it 2 or 3 days. I've got nothing. Step in and fix it. And so I'll step in, I'll take care of it, hand it back over to them, and we're done. So But right now, staffing, what I'm looking at is literally 3 months ago when I had my lull, because it was just the first 2 years. First year was me. For 2 additional years was me and one assistant. Then I went to two assistants, one listing coordinator, one closing coordinator in the mix. And then literally in March, the closing coordinator was poached by one of the bigger banks here in town. And so she left to go over there. And then I hired in the interim just another agent in the office, just on just kind of a contractual basis to help out on the listing input side, so that Gabby was freed up then to help me in my world a little bit and kind of keep everything rolling. At that point, since then, I've said, you know what? There's no need for her to be inputting listings. We're on pace to input 180 listings this year. Her time is worth a lot more than that to me. And so now that's what the third position is basically just an assistant to her to help input the listings, get them all ready for the market. She's still the main point of contact with our customers, but Kara is the main point of contact now with our vendors on the back end to coordinate all those details, make sure everything's ready to go. I'll review the listing right before we go live on it, and then we're ready to roll. But I am out of the mix so Gabby will basically load numbers in the morning, verify, kind of scrub what's in Red X on the front end to make sure that I'm not calling new construction, kind of deleting it all down, whatever it may be on the expireds. I'm making the calls. I'll send her a message through Google or put it on the calendar and say, listing appointment this time. They know to prep the whole listing packet, get it ready to go. I pick it up on my way out the door, go to the appointment, bring back the paperwork, and then it's out of my hands again. And so I don't touch it again until we review it at the very end. And if I did my job right of pricing it right, then I've only got to deal with it for about a week or two before it's then transitioned over to the closing coordinator who takes care of the rest of it.
Which, and anyone can build that structure. It is simple, yeah. And I think it's deceptive in its simplicity because, Greg, you know that a lot of the people that are listening or watching right now, whether it's live or after the fact, are looking at that and going, that won't work for me. You know? And I don't know why, but there's so many people out there that that's their automatic reaction, and they never make it past that automatic reaction. So how do you, for those folks, how do they overcome that?
Well, first of all, a lot of those people that are saying that, they'll also admit that one of the reasons it doesn't work is because they're kind of a control freak, right? And they want to control everything. They want to have their hands on it. And, that becomes a challenge. If you feel like you have to have your hands on everything, if you have to see everything, in other words, you can't trust someone else can do a job, then that becomes a real challenge. But if you can just resist that roadblock, which you are going to put in front of yourself, like no one blocks you from doing it. That's a roadblock that you actually place in front of you. If you resist that, here's a simple strategy that I use when people ask me all the time, Greg, should I hire an assistant, or what should my assistant do? And I take them through. As a matter of fact, if you Google or if you go to YouTube and search something about, should I hire an assistant? I did a whole video on it, on a series of questions that I'm going to ask you to determine whether or not you should hire an assistant. But one of the things that I'm going to do in the beginning is I'm going to take a pad of paper, and I'm going to draw a line in the middle. And on the left side of the line, it's the line in the middle going all the way down the page. On the left side, I'm going to have income servicing. And on the right hand, I'm going to have income generating. And then I just think about all the tasks that are associated with doing the transaction, running my business. And I put them either on the income generating side or the income servicing side. And then what I do is I say, once I have a list of all the generating things and the servicing things, I declare that I'm never going to do another servicing task. I'm only going to do generation tasks. But then you have a task list of all the things that you're going to need your staff to do. So that's the first step, is just, if you will just take that list and map everything out and label it as servicing or generating, you're going to be shocked at how you're probably spending 90% of your time in servicing activities and wondering why you can't grow your business, right? So the first step is just to look at that, because then it's an aha. And then you can decide whether or not you're going to do something about it. But it's pretty shocking if you'll just kind of map that out on a piece of paper. It'll be fairly obvious as to why there's not a lot of growth in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the deal. I mean, Jeff, it's all about the urgent but unimportant. Which it sounds like you've done a pretty good job of sealing yourself off from by having your staff effectively run you, as you put it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And one thing that I heard, I don't know if you guys follow Grant Cardone on with the 10X, but I did go to that growth con that he did back in March, I guess it was. And one of the speakers talked about non-refundable minutes. And he said, a lot of people will look at this concept of, I want to have a vision board of this, this, and this. To go back and rip it down, to go back, figure out what you can make in that day. And so for me, if I've got 2 listing appointments, that can be roughly 6,000 is the average paycheck here in the area in commission dollars. So 12 grand total. If I can take 2 listings a day if I try actually hard enough. You divide that by 8 hours, divide that by 60 minutes, you get down to $25 a minute. And he said, if you looked at it at that level, you'll never need to look at it at the macro level again. Because when you're wasting that 5 minutes talking about whatever your weekend was or whatever it was, and you just realized you cost yourself $125, you'll get back to doing exactly what you need to do. And even if you're looking at your staffing the same way, and that's why I was referring to hiring the assistant for Gabby earlier, because I knew what her time was worth to me, and I knew where she can be doing certain items, kind of analyzing certain locations for me to target next. And that's worth a lot more than me than having your input listings. And so that's why we divided things up the way we did.
So Matt, here it comes again, from agent to entrepreneur. The difference is agents are looking at return on investment, and Jeff is looking on return on time.
Yeah, that's true.
Here he is. He's looking at return on time. That's exactly what he just said. A very, very important thing is to understand the value of your time, and then talk about leveraging it. You got to know the value, and then you leverage it, and then you get very greedy with it, right? It's like, oh wait, I've got to stop doing this because the value of that minute is so low when I could be doing this. And then when you start doing that in your business, guess what else we probably start doing is we are likely to start on the Saturday when we're thinking about what we're going to do. We're also looking at a return on our time, even from an emotional standpoint. Instead of sitting on the couch doing nothing, just going to be on the boat with his buddy. He's getting a high return on his time because he's going to be enjoying, the day that he has out on the water.
Yeah. I was at Jeff Cohn's workshop on Monday, and he was explaining how whenever somebody comes up to him, and he doesn't have a lot of agents come up to him at this point because they have other people to go to, but to avoid and point out when they're having conversations that aren't worth either one of their time, he calls them fluffy cat. He just says fluffy cat. Has he ever told you that?
No,
he calls them fluffy cat conversations. So I love that because it's a great mental wake up call. Like, oh my God, I'm having a fluffy cat conversation right now. I need to shoulder roll out the nearest plate glass window and get back to work.
That's good. Okay, I like it.
Let's talk a little strategy, Jeff. So what's the next step for you in the evolution, and what's your goals? I know obviously you've got some goals in terms of what you want to finish for the year, but let's step out a little bit beyond that. What's the next big step for the business as an entrepreneur?
Right now, it's just continuing to leverage a little bit more of what I've got. So I think this is before we started the call. I said, I've got currently, I think there's 10 different spots around the office that say I control 10 hours a week to make $1 million a year. And so my primary goal is to get to the point of nothing but prospecting during those 2 hours a day. And if I do that alone, that's going to leverage it to one more level. And so currently I've got the staffing in place that should easily be able to list 250, 300 deals a year. And it's just a matter of making sure I'm going on those at least 2 to 3. And I have run as deep as 5 appointments a day as far as listing appointments go, and then just come back, get them all in place with the staffing that I've got. But I do go every other month down to Boca Raton to Mike Ferry's prospecting clinic. And so I've kind of worked that in as a routine for the past going on 8 months now to make sure I'm hitting that every other day. And last time I was there for 2 days in a row, having a coach in your ear kind of making sure you're saying the right things, but set 17 appointments in 2 days, in a Monday, Tuesday day. And so really just kind of leveraging the normal work week to what I do when I'm there so that I can get even more business out of it on that. And then at some point, obviously I'm buying investment properties, things like that for a few other vertical streams of income, and then kind of step back and figure out what those other angles are. But I'm still kind of, in my opinion, perfecting that brain surgeon model of having the anesthesiologist do their thing, have the nurse open it up, step in, do the work that's needed to be done, let somebody else sit them back up, and somebody else follow up from there. So that's kind of just taking that to a couple more levels because, like I said, Josh and a couple other people I've seen, I think have figured out how to do that. And so really just keep up in the game.
What will your goal be in 2018?
150 and a million GCCs this year. And then next year, the goal is 1 million in profit and 200 deals.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be somewhere ballpark. I want to run it to, because I probably will wrap this year up around 1.1 is what I'm thinking. So I'll probably continue this 30 to 50% growth that I've been on. And so just push that up to somewhere in the 1.7, 1.8 realm pretty easily next year.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say, just for those that are thinking about this type of growth themselves? What would you say is the one thing that you have to do in order to put yourself on track? Because see, my experience is when you talk about 2018 or the next year's goals, you actually got to start putting things in place months before you actually get to that calendar year. So in my office, as soon as we get come down off of our sugar high off of Halloween, we immediately start implementing the plan for 2018. So what that means is at the beginning of October, we're planning, and at the beginning of November, we're already executing 2018 plan. So when we hit January 1st, we're already running through the start line, because most people, January becomes a dead month. It's like a month that they're trying to generate momentum. Momentum's already got to be created in January to reach the goals that we set for the entire year. So what are things what's one thing that's coming to your mind that, man, I've got to, in the next couple of months, I've got to start focusing on this to make sure I hit my 2018 goals?
The time, controlling the time more than anything else. So like you were saying, when I was back in Buyerland a few years ago, you focus on that November, December to hit your goals for that year. And then you magically forget that you're not actually on the phones prospecting to generate the income for next year. And so as of last year, I got into the mode of that October to November, that fourth quarter is going to make first quarter great the next year. And so I'm bringing on the assistant for the listing coordinator, essentially. That was the big step this year to free up some time. And hopefully not too many of the competitors are watching, but we've got one of the beaches here, the higher end beach in this area. I've seen some agents that have rested on their laurels a bit. And so I'm seeing some opportunity there. And so as I mentioned, freeing up Gabby's time there, really breaking down that market so that I know exactly what I'm calling into, what all the details are of that. So as I'm stepping into that next world, really be able to take it over pretty easily and pretty quickly and efficiently and have all the data that I need to know. I was the guy that when I started with expireds, like if I was going on a listing appointment and I was a month in the business, I knew where that gas station was near the house and where this was. So I had reference points to talk about. And so I'm looking at the exact same thing now going into this higher end market of really being able to have all the details of the condo buildings, the homeowners associations, anything like that on those properties. And that's where I've freed her time up to be able to give me that data so that when I'm in prospecting mode. So as of next week, actually, 1 day a week is going to be targeting that market. And so we're going into Q3 right now. And so if I'm going to take over that market, it's got to kind of start now and continue into that going into 2018.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Just something on a little side note. He inspired me to think of something, and I just kind of wrote down on my notepad. And he said, right now maybe some agents are losing focus. Right, a hot market. Just for those of you out there listening, a hot market creates complacency within agents. Right, and complacency within your competition creates opportunity for you when the market shifts. So the reason why we want to continue hustling at this time where the market's hot is because all the work that we're doing now while our competition is becoming more and more fat and happy, complacent, is going to pay off when the market shifts. Because the top agents tend to gain market share in a downward trending market, not in an upward trending market. But in order to capitalize on the downward trending market, your activities have to increase and be very consistent during the hot market. You take advantage of all the things that are going on or not going on within your competition who's being complacent, and then it shows up in growth in the shift. So I don't know why that came out, but that is just something I thought I'd want to share.
Love it. The thing that I thought that brought to mind was I picked up a copy of Claude Hopkins' Scientific Advertising, which is a 100-year-old classic. It's an amazing book. And he says, he kind of points out just all the painstaking prep work that goes into writing a great, in this case, he was using like ad campaigns, especially direct mail campaigns, and all the research, all the weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of data gathering to really come up with that one kernel of an idea. And he has this great quote. It like jumped off the page. It said, "Genius is the art of taking pains." The painstaking behind the scenes work is what makes genius. I thought, oh my God, like that just like smacked me in the face. He said, he went on to say that something to the effect of, nobody becomes really successful in sales and marketing except for those that are willing to burn the midnight oil. Mm-hmm. So some great quotes there.
Yeah, those are great.
Awesome. Okay, well, we've had some cool guys watching with us here. Actually, Greg McDaniel, Buddy Blake. We've got Lawrence, Nancy, Rebecca, Michael, Ben. A bunch of people have been watching us on Facebook, guys. We really appreciate it. Make sure to hit the like and heart button if you enjoy the content. But let's kind of wrap things up here, Jeff. Refresh everyone's memory on where you're at so they can keep you in mind for referrals and how they can get referrals over to you.
Sure. Wilmington, North Carolina is the market. So I'd work the Wilmington market. That's Carolina, Curie Beach, Wrightsville Beach, Figure Eight Island, and then the Leland area in northern Brunswick County. And so all kind of southeastern North Carolina. Phone number 910-297-7071 is the easiest method there. And then the email is probably the easiest one would be jlesley.c21@gmail.com.
Cool. All right. And then Greg, same question for you.
Pretty easy to me to reach me, gregharrelson@gmail.com. Keep those emails coming. I'll keep answering them, and inspires me to be able to help and contribute to other agents around the country. So keep them coming.
Cool. All right, guys. And then for the podcast itself, make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher if you've got your mobile device. You can also subscribe on YouTube to get the video versions. All the videos, including the highlight clips from the show, go up on the Level Up podcast channel on YouTube. So check that out. And then if you want the free training that we put together on how to use marketing automation in your business, guys, we interviewed Jan Pittman here a few weeks back about how she effectively takes, I think it was 22 listings she'll take this month with not a single outbound call made. So that video on marketing automation is the secret to setting up that structure where you can eventually make the flip from where Jeff is at right now, very prospecting heavy and focusing and hitting the phones for a couple hours a day, into taking more of the inbound calls like Greg and Jan are doing right now to take 20 to 30 listings a month between the two of them. So guys, go to theleveluppodcast.com/free. To the leveluppodcast.com/free. That is where you can sign up for the latest episodes of the podcast and get that marketing automation training video for free. So with that said, guys, Jeff, Greg, appreciate it. This was awesome. We had a lot of great viewers and comments and questions and stuff like that. So this was a lot of fun.
You're welcome, man.
Enjoyed it.
All right, guys.